Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving into a single, and I mean a single, intensely philosophical source.
Right?
It's a 1980 address by Reverend Sun Myung Moon called A Supreme Manifestation of Gratitude and Filial Piety. And this is far from a casual exploration of thankfulness.
No, not at all. The mission of this deep dive really is to map out a specific and, well, an incredibly difficult hierarchy of service.
A hierarchy.
Yeah, it starts with the family, it goes all the way up to God, and it analyzes this radical theological claim. The text argues that the highest, most profound form of gratitude is, only achieved through enduring the longest, most agonizing tribulation.
So we're essentially charting a blueprint for what the speaker sees as the ultimate form of piety, patriotism, and sainthood. And the source translates these traditional concepts, particularly filial piety from Oriental philosophy, into this vertical relationship with the divine. It uses these definitions to frame everything from historical figures to the 1980 election.
And we really need to signal to you, the listener, right away. The definitions of duty and love here they're far more extreme than what we might conventionally understand. We're moving into a space where sacrifice is the price of admission for genuine thanks.
I see.
What's so fascinating is that it isn't just philosophy. The text directly connects this spiritual ideal of suffering to real-world political struggles. It really sets a dramatic stage.
So let's start at the very foundation then, the source of gratitude. The core premise is that gratitude isn't something you feel after, receiving a gift.
Right.
It's something found in the opportunity to serve. The speaker starts with these horizontal relationships. Serving parents, that's filial piety, and serving one's country, that's patriotism.
And those are the opportunities for gratitude. But they're limited horizontally. The highest position is vertical. It's serving Almighty God in heaven.
And that's defined as the position for supreme gratitude.
Exactly. If you succeed there, you can be, without any limit, a pious child, a patriot, and a saint all at once.
But the text immediately creates some friction with this idea, saying these opportunities are relatively difficult to obtain. It's not a simple checklist.
No, and the striving required to get there is precisely what makes the accomplishment so valuable.
Which brings us to this paradox of tribulation.
This is really the heart of it. We're told explicitly that the greater the tribulation a person overcomes, the greater the thanksgiving he feels afterward.
It's the opposite of how we generally live. We try to avoid suffering.
Right. We want to maximize comfort. This framework suggests comfort is spiritually limiting, and that prolonged suffering is actually the necessary prerequisite for maximum spiritual achievement.
It completely reframes suffering.
It does. It's not an obstacle to be avoided, but the very crucible where worth is forged. The text really emphasizes endurance as the true measure.
So it's not just about intensity.
No. It says the position that receives recognition requires sacrifice and tribulation, and it's more valuable when that tribulation is long rather than short. It's about the sheer, sustained duration of unyielding effort that makes the final gratitude unshakable.
Okay, so let's apply that principle of endurance to filial piety. You mentioned it's translated from Oriental philosophy, so for our listeners, we're talking about this deep respect and obedience to parents.
Central to Confucian thought, yes. But the speaker takes this concept and just turns the dial far past 11. He uses it as a template for total self-abnegation.
That's the key context.
The question posed is, what qualifies a person for recognition as the number one son of piety?
Yeah.
And the qualification isn't achieving some positive outcome or getting public praise.
It's what then?
It's serving without any concept of recognition at all, because striving for recognition means you are actually serving yourself, not your parent, not a higher principle.
That is an extraordinarily high standard. I mean, it removes the entire framework of motivation we normally use.
It does.
So how does the text define what that genuine, non-self-interested love even looks like?
It uses these extremely powerful, almost agonizing examples. There's a specific scenario given of a son serving humble or sick parents who might be in a sickbed for 10 years.
With no hope of recovery.
Right, no hope. And the son willingly, continually, day after day, takes care of them with no end date, no reward. That unwavering commitment, even without hope. That's genuine love.
So the standard is determined by the length of suffering and the intensity of love.
Yes, and this is where the source uses details that are frankly shocking to emphasize this theological ideal of sacrifice.
How so?
Well, it sets a theoretical maximum for loyalty. The text offers these scenarios where a person is qualified if they serve unselfishly, even if they lose all their arms, their legs, eyes, nose, chin, even their neck.
Wow.
It's less like a job description and more like a theological definition of total, perfect, irreversible loyalty. The point is the absolute willingness to be completely undone for the sake of service without complaint.
The ultimate willingness to sacrifice physical wholeness.
That impossible standard defines the ideal. A person who no one, according to the text, could ever criticize.
And that concept of complete self-abnegation is then immediately extended to patriotism.
Exactly. The true patriot is not some power monger. They don't seek to rule. Their job is to take the burdens and grief of their entire nation onto their shoulders.
And it's not enough to just serve the head of state or the powerful.
No, crucially, a true patriot has to love the people at the bottom of the ladder. They have to identify with the most suffering parts of society.
And that identity extends beyond just compassion.
Right. It extends to shame. If a true American patriot sees their countrymen doing shameful things, they feel that shame profoundly as if their own family were disgraced. It's an absolute intimate responsibility.
And because that kind of patriot opposes fads or negative trends, they often end up rejected, criticized by their own people.
Called foolish. But the text assures the follower that this rejection is just worldly and temporary. Their value, it remains for eternity.
That concept of enduring rejection, even from the people you serve, seems like the perfect bridge to the next level.
Sainthood. A saint loves all mankind as their family. They extend that intense sacrificial piety and patriotism to a global scale.
And the text asks, is a saint handsome or beautiful or comfortable?
And the answer is a definitive no. They live entirely differently from the rest of the world, often leading these difficult, inconspicuous lives, precisely because they're holding a standard the world rejects.
And the ultimate example given for this rejected saint is Jesus.
The discussion really emphasizes the extremity of his suffering. Rejected by his family, his people, and ultimately crucified as a common criminal.
The text highlights his complete destitution. That New Testament passage where he says, foxes have holes, birds have nests.
But the Son of Man had nowhere to lay his head. He was pushed to such a physical extreme that he truly envied the lower creatures.
And even at his lowest point, on the cross, crying out, "My God, why hast thou forsaken me?"
Even then, the text emphasizes he maintained his principle of loving God and mankind. He even prayed for the people killing him. This is labeled the supreme manifestation of true love.
Okay, but if that was the supreme manifestation of love, what was the tragedy? The source says it wasn't the crucifixion itself.
Right, and that is such a critical distinction. The speaker defines Jesus' true tragedy as the mission being left undone here on earth. Meaning, because he wasn't able to unify his people and establish a lasting physical kingdom of love, only spiritual salvation was made available. The speaker suggests Jesus would have been far more grateful for the opportunity to fulfill his mission completely.
Rather than have it cut short.
Exactly. And that framework, this drive to achieve a completed mission on Earth, that's the thread that connects all of this directly to the highly contentious political environment of 1980.
Right. It makes the struggle immediate and political.
Precisely. The speaker transitions, and he addresses the controversy around his followers, the Moonies, who received sharp words and grief for their work. He notes people point fingers and pray for him to be taken away.
And he then defines his own mission in America as a massive intentional sacrifice.
Yes. The source claims he brought everything he had to give, and he received animosity in return. And it wasn't passive service. He says for 4 years he was outspoken and critical of the American government.
Facing opposition not just at home, but internationally.
He says the government sought cooperation from 25 other nations to block his mission. All of this sets the stakes for the 1980 U.S. election.
Which is framed not as a political race, but as a unique historical showdown.
A life or death matter. Not just for him, not just for America, but for God's will. It was presented as the culmination of the earthly mission.
A very bold assertion of divine involvement in a specific political event. The text says he predicted Reagan's landslide victory, even when people thought he was crazy.
And here's where we have to be very clear in our impartial framing. The text defines this outcome in unequivocal terms. The speaker asserts the result proved that he was right and that the divine principle teaching was correct.
And
Crucially, he explicitly labels the Republican victory as God's victory for unification church, not Reagan's. This directly ties the religious doctrine to a tangible, measurable political success.
So once that victory is claimed, he declares his mission in America consummated.
Yes. The difficult battle was necessary to set the stage. And now, he says, God is in the driver's seat.
Which leads directly to the implication for the listeners, the followers.
Right. If his work is done, he tells them, now your turn has come. They are now the leading actors on the stage, and they must win the ultimate global victory.
The previous suffering was just the training.
That's it. The real sacrifice is ahead for them.
So if they are the leading actors, what internal conviction must they have to face that?
Absolute conviction that God is with them. And this conviction is then tied back to the ultimate payoff, an overriding gratitude that dominates your life.
And this is where he uses that metaphor about their role. The followers are locomotives.
Yeah, tasked with pulling the rest of the world, the passenger cars, forward. The principle is the rail they run on, and God is the final goal. They have the burden of moving history.
And the internal state that comes from this is supposed to be remarkable.
The text claims that because you have this overriding conviction, trivial things, accidents, sickness, small financial bills, they just can't overwhelm you anymore.
He uses that powerful analogy to make the feeling visceral. Imagine a cliffhanger victory, like a football game between Russia and America.
Right.
The crowd is wildly cheering as a historic win, and someone accidentally rips your jacket. Would you even care?
No, of course not. The overwhelming joy of the victory makes that material loss completely meaningless.
And that's the psychological state the source suggests this conviction should achieve. A focus so profound that worldly suffering becomes insignificant noise.
And that focus on the mission, not on comfort, leads to the final definition of a hero. The speaker clarifies that the true heroes of the Unification Church, they're not necessarily the leaders.
Not the people with titles.
No. The true heroes are those who suffer most and give themselves most.
They're the ones who inherit his tradition and foundation.
They're the ones who truly make the hero, and the final directive emphasizes absolute readiness to serve, regardless of who's in charge.
They have to be ready to take direction from unexpected channels.
Yeah, he even suggests a black brother may be in supreme command, and their response must be instant. God, your will be done, you shall win.
It's a complete submission of personal ambition to the mission. What's so fascinating about this whole address is how the philosophy equates the deepest spiritual opportunity, supreme gratitude, directly with enduring the maximum possible worldly tribulation.
Rejection and sacrifice.
Indeed. The standard for becoming that #1 son of piety is determined by the length of your suffering and the intensity of your love. It forces the followers to be prepared for the greatest possible burden and to move forward with this absolute sacrificial confidence.
We've seen how the source demands a level of enduring selflessness that, it requires a person to be willing to be completely undone for the sake of service, linking spiritual growth only to maximal difficulty.
So if ultimate victory is found not in worldly comfort or recognition, but solely on the foundation of suffering and being rejected by the very people you serve, then what modern cause or movement, political, social, or religious, truly meets that standard of genuine, continuous, sacrificial love outlined in this address? That's something for you to mull over.